Hi there, this is Tyler, and I'm here with a crew from the Gauntlet, which if you watch anything I run for the Gauntlet a lot because there's some of the greatest people you're ever going to get a chance to play with. If you like indie games, if you like playing with amazing, generous, supportive people, if you enjoy just being out there role-playing, the Gauntlet's the place for you. And you can find us, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, you can find us at gauntlet-rpg.com. We're coming up with our own forum now that G Plus is dead. We do amazing things here in the Gauntlet. We have a fanzine that is spectacular. We are putting out 200 games a month for people to play. And if you like playing games, the Gauntlet is the place for you. And I urge you to come find us. We're going to be playing The Mustang, which is by John Harper. And John Harper is one of my favorite game designers, an absolutely brilliant individual who makes some amazing micro games. A lot of folks know the Wild Blue trilogy of Lady Blackbird, Magister Lore, Lord Scarlock. The Mustang's a little early in his catalog, and it's very different from that. It is a very personal story about a town where something horrible is preying upon them. And 4 heroes stand up and are willing to sacrifice to protect their community. I will be playing as facilitator, kind of the narrator, kind of the lead instigator of what's going on. Our other 3 are going to be playing those that are willing to come and fight at my side. And this is a minimalist game. There's not a bunch of rolls. There's no skills. We're going to be talking. And we're going to be coming up with how we face this horror. Each of us will flip a coin. In our case, we're going to be rolling dice because I couldn't find a good thing to flip a die that I could share. But it's a 50-50. Each person will flip that coin and see what their fate is. And at the end, how the companions did will determine whether or not the Mustang was stopped. I do want to mention that we have some safety tools in place because this is a pretty dark game and it will get into some emotional territory. First off, we have the Gauntlet inclusivity policy. Basically, that says that we're all here as friends. We're here to take care of each other, and we're here to have a good time. We're supportive and generous to each other. It also means that if something gets difficult or if you need a moment, you can always say, I'm going to step away. There's no problem with that. I will make sure we also have a break in here because, again, emotion may get a little heavy, or we could just need a stretch. But if there's a moment where you need to step away, you can put something in chat, say, I'm stepping away. Or you can just drop for a moment, hopefully come back. If not, it would be nice, put in, I don't think I can come back in the chat. We also are going to have the X card on the table. The X card, for those who don't know, is if something gets problematic, if something is personal or difficult to the point of destroying your fun. You can do something like this. You can put something in chat, or you can say, hey, Tyler, I think I want to X. That's perfectly fine. I will say if you put something in chat, I have a habit of watching your lovely faces. I don't always dip down to the chat, so you may want to direct my attention with some motion. But if it happens, we'll move back. I may ask for a clarification, but we'll reframe a scene and move forward. There's no questions asked. We just reframe and progress into our game. So, with that in mind, we're going to play the Mustang. I'm going to read the intro, and then we're going to go around, and each person is going to read a segment of the beginning of this game. When you read your segment, please say your name, introduce yourself to the folks who are watching, and then once we get to the end of that, I'm going to ask everyone who they'd like to play. Right? So, the Mustang. The Mustang is a living nightmare, a soot-black stallion with eyes like burning coals, breath like flame, and hooves of ringing steel. It's swift and it's deadly. It is everything that is savage and cruel, given physical form. Chris?
I'm Chris, and I'll be reading the next part. You're crouched outside the lair of the Mustang near the burned tree. Your friends are with you, exchanging nervous looks. Like you, they're having second thoughts. Like you, they smell death on the air and wonder if it's their deaths. Cassie has a big sheet of metal with a rope across the back because the Mustang breathes fire. Jack has a rifle because the Mustang is far too swift to catch. William has a Bible because the Mustang is the devil's steed. You have a knife because in the end, someone has to cut the Mustang's throat. It's the witching hour, the moon is full, and fresh blood is on the ground. The Mustang will surely run tonight.
My name is Keith, but that is not the name of the people that we are concerned with this evening. We have three supporting the narrator. The first is Cassie, a young woman from town. She's fierce and wild. She's in love with you. When she heard you were going to kill the Mustang, she insisted that she come along. She made a shield out of sheet metal and rope to protect you from the Mustang's fire. Jack is a young man from the hills. He's calm and quiet. He steals glances at William when he thinks no one is looking. He brought his father's rifle with him to shoot the Mustang. He cut crosses into the noses of the bullets, just in case. William is a young man from town. He's brave and faithful. He came with you tonight without being asked. He brought the word to still the Mustang's black heart.
Finally, I'm Peter, reading the last part. Keep a sharp eye out for the Mustang. If it takes you by surprise, you'll all surely die. But it's a long wait, and the night is cool, and someone brought a flask of whiskey. So your friends will set to talking to work off their nerves, and they'll pass the flask to keep warm. You can hardly begrudge them these comforts. You're the reason they're here, after all. Let them talk about why they came with you. Let them ask you why the Mustang has to die. Let them talk to each other while you keep silent. Finally, before the blood is dry on the ground, give each friend a silver coin from your pocket and say the prayer together.
All right. And so, to give a quick idea of the game, we are friends who've gathered at a table. And now, we're going to choose who we'd like to play. Who would like, does anyone have someone they're very interested in play? Peter?
I would like to play William.
Excellent, excellent. Is that fine with everyone? Keith, who might you like to play?
I am interested in either of them, so I don't know, Chris, if you have a desire between one of the two.
I kind of like what the story that Jack has to tell, so I'm leaning towards that.
I am excellent with Cassie.
Wonderful. All right, then. We're all waiting here at the burned tree. The Mustang has been ravaging our town for ages. We finally decided to stand up to it. It's cold. We have a small fire, but it's hardly keeping us warm. I look over at Cassie. You want a drink?
You know I do. Grab it. Take a stiff belt as if to impress you with my fortitude. Wipe my mouth off with the back of my wrist. Kind of gesture to Jack and William. Not expecting either necessarily take it.
Oh, Jack will take it. He reaches over, takes it slowly, takes a stiff breath first, steel himself, knocks one back,
Attaboy.
blinks a couple of times. His eyes are watering a little bit. You can tell he's not used to this. And he motions to William.
I think William's the only one to sort of shake his head and just say, "Thanks, but I'll keep my wits about me the old-fashioned way."
Come on, Willie. You're going to need that way more than you'll need this. Cassie taps the cover of the Bible.
I have faith in what I have.
Well, in that case, I'll take this for you.
Faith's important, William. You've got it right there.
What, out of character, what is the narrator's name? I don't see anything listed. So
There's nothing listed.
Okay.
And so I think I'm going to have him called Kyle.
Okay. That will make it easier to aim for that.
Yeah. William, you know, there's no sin in keeping warm.
Night of all nights, my sin is not what I'm worried about. But thank you.
I guess we'll all be plenty warm when that Mustang shows up, won't we? Lesson my shield works the way it oughta. Ting, ting, ting.
I'm hoping that, well, let's just hope that the shield will hold.
Well, it's good enough to keep out the wind and the rain. Just so I don't find out I took it before I get it back. You don't think it'll burn it up too bad, do you?
Hard to say. Your pa's he's a strict man. You gonna be in trouble for being out here?
Hell, Kyle, he means well. He means well.
What?
She looks down at the dirt, kind of scuffing her foot a little bit, not really believing the words that she's saying.
I think Jack sort of like shoulders the rifle a little bit, more to kind of support himself than anything else. And he says, "What the hell was your pa going to use that thing for anyway?"
It's a bit of roofing. I repurposed it. You understand, Jack, but it'll work for what we need. Keep us safe till you bring it down with your sure shot there. Gives him another big thwack on the shoulder.
He shifts a little bit and winces and like leans on the rifle again. Yeah, this rifle. It's took down many coyote. I ain't never shot at anything like the Mustang. And I know Pa hadn't either. Not for a long time.
Your pa's a fine man. Hell of a shot.
He used to be.
Well, tain't none of our folks what they were. That's just the way of things. That's just time. He's still a hell of a man, Jack. I know my pa respects the hell out of him.
How's he doing, Jack?
It's tough for me to say. He don't like to talk to me all that much. He never really has.
You've been doing a mighty fine work up there. Make sure everything stays good on your range.
Luckily, it's so miserable up there that hardly anybody really wants a piece of that. It was probably good 30 years ago when Paul set down roots there, but streams quit running. River shifted a little bit. The old man that bought up the other end of town has sort of dammed up part of that river. So we get even less of it than we would otherwise.
That ain't right.
The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away.
I'm pretty sure old man Foster ain't the Lord.
Got to tell that to him.
I wouldn't want to be the one to do it.
Maybe with that rifle you could.
That's probably a little bit more harsher than I really ought to be.
Yeah,
But
Cassie. Now, we shouldn't be stirring up feuds.
I reckon you're right, Kyle. But somebody ought to put the fear of God in him.
If he doesn't have it now, it'll take a lot.
Yeah, maybe he should be out here tonight to see what we're hoping to see.
He ain't one to come and do that sort of thing. Stand up for the community like that.
Surely not. Surely not. But a thing like this Mustang puts a person in their place. I'm not ashamed to admit I'm a little afeared tonight myself.
you'd be crazy if you weren't.
Might be crazy even if I am.
We probably all a little bit crazy.
William, you mind walking off a spell with me?
Sure.
Kyle kind of guides you off to the side. William, this ain't just dangerous work. This thing ain't of this world.
I've heard bits and pieces. My fair share of, I don't know if you could really call them stories, because those at least have a beginning, middle, and end, and I think we're still in the middle of whatever this one is. But maybe it's not from this world, but it's in this one.
You didn't have to come here.
There wasn't really a choice. Not really.
You're a good man, William.
And I think he just kind of looks up and just, I suppose we'll see after tonight.
Yeah.
Faith and doubt go hand in hand.
I suppose that's what the good book says. Cassie and Jack, you've been left there at the fire.
I think just Cass is kind of staring into the fire, listening to the crackling of the sticks as they catch up. Little antsy, tapping hand against her thigh. Looking like she wants to say something to Jack. After a while, they'll turn into to look at him. She says, "You ever seen this thing before, Jack?"
I've seen it from a ways off one time. I couldn't see it in particular, but I could see the fire.
Yeah.
Looked like a trail of wildfire that just ran across the edge of Daddy's place up on the hill.
What'd you do?
I hid. Listen, I'll tell you one thing. That thing, if it ain't the devil, it's close akin to him. And I'm glad William decided to come.
Just between you and me, so am I. There's few things in this world I don't understand. Well, suppose there's a few things I do. Might be the easier way to say it. But, yeah, I'm glad he's here. I know you're especially glad he's here. Ain't that right, Jack?
Jack sort of shrugs uncomfortably and said, yeah, I'm glad he's here. I just kind of hope this ain't the last time I see him and the rest of y'all too.
Well, if it is, I want to make sure we do this thing right. Make sure we don't leave any burdens on ourselves as we cross over to that next life. So, if there's anything you think you got to do, just in case this is your last night on Earth, you best make sure you do it, Jackie. She hands him the whiskey.
Then he doesn't take a breath to brace himself this time. He just throws it back hard, winces a little bit and hands it back. Or he starts to hand it back and then he thinks better of that and then takes another one.
As you take that second swig, Kyle looks at you, William. I'm gonna grab a little more wood for this fire. I'll be right back. And Kyle moves away as William, you return to the fire. Cassie, you could see the moon has begun to rise over the hills. It's red. It's sort of silhouetted. You can see Kyle 100 yards away or so, picking up sticks, pieces of wood to bring back. What do you do?
Before I do anything else, reach out and grab Jack's arm as he's taking another sip. Say, whoa, Jack, too much of that and you won't know which one of the Mustangs to shoot.
I'll shoot for the one in the middle.
I bet you did too.
But he hands it back.
See that moon? Don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign.
Well, with the moon out, at least we'll see it coming.
Yeah, I guess it probably don't need no moon to see us.
Nope. But we'll know it's there once it breathes fire.
Is William walking back as well?
Yeah. He's probably, as you say that last bit, he's retaken his seat by the fire.
Cassie moves over a little bit, give him a spot on log. What's the good book say about a moon like that, William?
Unfortunately, contrary to popular belief, the good book isn't just something I can open up to a passage of and go, this is what it means. But if I had to hazard a guess, good or ill, it's a sign. Problem about most of the stuff in here is the signs it usually talks about make more sense because you've read them in hindsight.
Well, I guess tomorrow morning the folks of town will decide if that red moon's a good or ill omen then, huh?
Well, I only hope we're there to help them figure it out.
Amen to that.
And Jack nods to that too.
Yeah. I think William kind of nods over to Jack and goes, you all right? Steady hands?
Steady enough. I think this is the one time that whiskey will probably help my aim more than anything because I won't shake so much.
Yeah.
In the distance, you see Kyle has kind of put together a little bundle of wood, and he looks back towards the fire. Cassie, you help me pull this down?
Sure, Kyle, you got it. Keep that fire stoked, William.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of move over a little faster than perhaps she's really feeling, trying to whistle a little through the darkness to keep the fright behind her.
As you draw close, Kyle, you can see he's watching you approach, and he's got that little pile of wood, but I mean, it doesn't look like he needed much help.
What's on your mind, Kyle? I can tell. Even in the dark, I can see the glints in your eyes.
Ain't no reason for you to have to be here, Cassie.
Shit, Kyle. You're the reason for me to have to be here.
I don't want that to be the case.
Well, then you shouldn't have been so damn handsome and charming.
Cassie, I'm just an old man. You ain't supposed to be messing with the likes of me.
Yeah, it is the old men that like to tell me what I should be doing.
You don't ever like listening.
Just don't have it in me. So you must know the more you tell me to leave, the more likely it is I'm going to stay.
He sort of looks down and he moves a little closer. I guess that may be why I keep telling you to go.
As long as we both know how to play the game, I suppose it's all right then.
I don't want you to get hurt.
I don't want to get hurt neither. I don't want none of us to.
You know, when I first saw you, I thought you were the damnedest thing ever. Running around. Wasn't a boy in this town could stand up to you.
Well, I hope I haven't changed your opinion away from that, Kyle.
No, ma'am. You hadn't.
She doffs her hat, puts it back on, a little curtsy.
If we get out of this, I'd like to see more of you.
Kyle Fuller. You wait until maybe our last night on Earth to say that? We got to stare the devil in the eyes for you to ask a girl out on a date?
Well, I ain't never been the dating sort.
That's probably part of what I like about you. Well, I guess now I got another reason to keep your sorry ass alive through the night.
Cassie. You make me feel... Well, you make me feel a hell of a lot younger.
That could be good or bad, I suppose.
They say fools rush in.
Then you must be the wisest man on Earth because you've been dragging your heels for years.
He sort of... Well, with that, we'll go back to the fire. What's going on there, Jack and William?
I think once William gets back, Peter, you said that William was basically poking the fire with a stick, trying to keep it up.
Yep, as per wishes.
Jack leans on the rifle a little bit, says, William, you know, I know that you the preacher's boy, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you something.
I believe you just did, but yes, you're allowed to ask me a second thing.
Oh, that's good because there ain't a whole lot I know, so I need to ask a lot of questions. Is killing a man always a sin?
I think if I just listened to this, and he gestures to the book he's been holding now with one hand, I think the answer's been pretty clear. It's a pretty straightforward. And I'd say it's at the very least frowned upon. But I've seen things. Seen people. You know, the more I learn about God's creatures, the more I think that we're the ones who made everything black and white. We're the ones who needed a clear yes or no, sin or virtue type deal. And I think that the truth is for us to explore. I think we have certain boundaries and certain limitations that have been placed on us already. But if the good Lord really does look down upon us every minute of every second of, or flip those around, I guess really I'm tired. Just, if he's always watching, and he knows what we're thinking, and he doesn't stop us from thinking the things that we can. Far be it from me to be any sort of arbiter in that.
Dang it, William! If I wanted to listen to that much, I'd have went and asked the barrister to tell me about the Bible.
Oh, you were expecting a yes or no answer.
You're the only one I know that might be able to give me a yes or no answer. You read the thing?
Fine.
You know the rest of the people in this town hardly ever look at that book other than on Sunday morning when they get called on to read a passage out of it.
Yes. Yes, it is a sin to kill another man. And that's foregoing any extra opinion I may have, sir.
Thank you, William.
Yeah. You sure you don't got any other questions I could end up being long-winded about?
See, I got a question for you, William. What when we're reading the Bible, even I on a Sunday morning have noticed that I've got some parts of the Bible that don't seem to jive well, don't seem to work together with the other parts. I've seen an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And then I've seen turn the other cheek. I've seen both of those things. And I don't have much of a memory, but I don't remember anybody trying to square that particular circle for me.
All right. Well, the simple answer to that is the Bible's the word of the Lord, but we wrote it, and unlike God, we're fallible. So times change. things aren't going to make sense at the beginning the same way they will at the end. Simple as that.
Does any of it ever make sense?
I sure hope so.
Think about that time. It's when Cassie and Kyle come up and Kyle throw a couple of more sticks onto the fire. It's a small fire and it's getting cold. Moon has made it up over the hills, so it's shining. It's still a few hours to midnight. Kyle looks over at over at Jack. It's only gonna come if there's blood. We need to find something.
What kind of blood does it need?
I think it'll take about any sacrifice. There's jackrabbits.
How did it have to happen right now, or could it have happened earlier?
Well, suppose it depends on if it could smell the blood.
It seems to have been able to find any kind of blood all over the county for the last, well, as long as I've been alive.
You got something?
I did. He takes out a old jackknife, like boot. He passes it over. Because it's got some blood on it from earlier tonight.
He looks down at it, looks back up. Huh. Now where might that have come from?
Something what deserved it.
Something or someone, Jack?
I'm not sure I'm in a position to answer that question.
Well, what's been deserving? Hard for man to say.
So I'll say that one deserved it.
He'll take the knife. He'll move to the other side of the fire.
And I think you can see on the knife that that's not Jack's knife.
Ooh. What makes us know it's not Jack's knife?
It's way too nice. It's got a pearl handle. It's got a silver inlay. And that blade underneath that blood is way too shiny and new.
I think maybe it has a set of initials.
It looks like if you clear the handle a little bit, you can see a stylized F on it.
Kyle takes it and sets it down next to the fire. Well, this might get it coming. It might do.
If the devil's going to take anybody, that ought to draw him out.
I think we're going to take a break. Let's take 5 minutes. We're going to come back. We're going to have that space between here and midnight, where I think we have some things we might want to explore. We'll do another little round, and then we'll head to seeing what happens. All right? So let's take 5 minutes and be back at 5 till.
Sounds good.
Oof. This game always brings the good feels. I love this game.
And it's so good. And it's been a long time since I got a chance to talk with a Western movie accent. That's always fun.
I like this game because it is improv at its best. It's yes and. It's a very take something and go. So, Jack's knife sits on the other side of the fire. Between the fire and the moonlight, seems like the red on the blade almost glows. Flash passes a few times. It's getting colder. Fire sure don't seem to make it warmer. The moon just keeps rising. Guy moves over to William. William, you know, me and your pa, we ain't always gotten along. I ain't much for church and the gospels and such. And, well, when my family passed away, he told me it was God's will. All these years later, I ain't sure that's the God I want to be up praising and all. Took away my Elizabeth. Took away my boy. 10 years on, I still ain't seen this God's will. But this creature, this thing, it tells me even if I ain't liking the God above, I sure don't like the devil below.
Once you know about the devil below, and I mean really know him, there's not a lot of people who really like him. So, I'm with you there. As for Pa, honestly, I think sometimes it's just what helps him sleep at night. Everyone's had loss. And we've had our share. I'm not comparing. Everybody's different. What I am saying, though, is sometimes I think if you shout loud enough, you don't have to hear the silence.
So how is it that you may be the most virtuous man I know? How'd that come to be?
I don't think it was any one thing. I think God's will is not in the choices that are made for us or happen to us. They're the choices we make.
I try to make good choices.
I've seen it.
Problem is, you don't know if choices are good or not till after they already been made.
Well, that's the gift, and some would say the curse of free will. We don't know.
Kyle kind of looks across that knife on the other side of the fire. Choices have a heavy burden sometimes.
Not that one.
Oh, I hear a kitty purring.
I mean, it's tough for the mood. Buddy, it's great that you're on my lap. There he goes.
He looks across that knife, and as you say that, he sort of, suppose so.
Now I think at that point, I think Jack steps up, stretches a little bit, and says, I need to find a spot. If I'm gonna shoot this thing, I need to have a spot where I can get a good shot at it.
Cassie pulls out a nice pocket watch. It's a little bit battered. It's seen better days, but at one point it was a rather nice one. Yeah, it's getting on. Almost midnight. We all best be getting ready.
Jack says, William, you mind walking with me for a minute?
Sure. If it'll help.
Don't know if help's the right word, but it'll make me feel a little bit better.
Sounds like help to me.
Y'all don't stray too far.
I won't. I'm just going to find a good spot that gives me just a little bit of high ground. Hopefully that's all I'm going to need.
I'll keep an eye out.
The two of you head off. Wanna have y'all's conversation, or wanna have Cassie and Kyle a moment?
Let's see. What do you think, Peter? You want to jump right into us, or you want to give it a minute?
I don't have a preference. It could go either way.
I think it feels organic. Let's have the two of y'all.
Okay.
Sure. Great.
All right. Jack's waits for you to get up and get over to where he is, and he starts trudging up the hill. You can tell one of his legs is a little bit stiff. Not that it doesn't look like he's broken it or anything, but it looks like he's walking with just a little bit of a club foot. And when he shrugs the rifle onto his right shoulder, you can tell he's favoring the left more than he usually would. And he starts trudging up the hill, and he starts speaking over his shoulder to you. He says, "There's another reason I was glad you're out here tonight, William. No, I spent just enough time in church to know enough to know that if there is a God, I'm in trouble with him for what I did tonight. You already told me that earlier. That was pretty clear. But as I know, if that thing comes for that blood on that knife, it's probably going to come for me too.
It'll come for all of us.
Well, yeah, it'll kill whatever gets in its way. That's what it does. But the devil knows his own. And whatever else that horse may be, it's close enough kin to the devil that it knows its own too.
Then it is good I'm here.
If anybody's got enough faith in them to stop that devil, it's got to be you. I know your daddy talks a good game, but it don't feel like his heart's in it. I recognize that. I see that in my daddy. You can tell when it starts to slip.
Yeah.
I think as the two of you are reaching a rise down by the fireside, Kyle and Cassie are sitting there looking out. Cassie, I've lost so much. And I didn't think I'd have things I cared about losing anymore. But I do.
Kyle, I swear to the Lord above, if you're about to get sweet right now, I will smack you harder than this Mustang will. Where you got that flask hiding at? Is all of it warm in your belly now? Is that why you're spinning sweet words to me?
Hell, I brought a second one.
Resourceful man. I knew there was a reason that I felt the way I do about you. Should I wax poetic in flowery prose before we meet our fate tonight, Kyle? Oh. Tell you the truth, I'm hoping that's what Jack's doing right now out in that hill.
And boys, I got a lot of troubles on their soul.
They wouldn't be out here if they had clean consciences.
Kyle looks across that knife. Jackie's gonna have trouble from that.
Cheer up, Kyle. He might die tonight.
I guess there is still hope then, ain't there?
Who do you think's knife that is, though?
I know whose knife that is.
So you think is Jack right about him deserving what he had coming?
I ain't never seen him anything more than a sorry piece of crap, I'll tell you that.
Well, with that clue to go on, I would say you just named half the citizens of our illustrious town, but I will bow to your judgment.
Foster being dead means this whole town gonna be in an uproar.
You better give him something else to talk about then.
Suppose we do. I'm glad you're here.
Kyle, you got to make up your mind if you're glad I'm here or you're sorry you got something you got to protect.
I'm glad you're here because it gives me something to protect.
Hopefully that'll put the thought out of your mind of doing something stupid and heroic tonight.
I ain't never been called a hero.
Is that why you're out here? I know why Jack's here. I got an inkling about William. I'm too stupid on you to make another decision. I don't know why you're here, though.
Because people shouldn't have to lose like I've lost. People should have a reason. Keep going. And this thing brings nothing but despair. I ain't gonna let that happen. I ain't gonna let that happen to this town. I sure as hell ain't gonna let it happen to you.
You keep talking like that, people are going to think you're a hero. Ain't going to be able to help it.
Well,
they're going to build you the nicest grave.
Well, having the finest grave in the graveyard still means you're just 6 feet under.
For you, they might make it 7. Just to make sure you don't come back and hassle us no more.
I reach out and touch your hand. I'm going to flip us back up to the hill.
Let's see. At that point, you see Jack is knelt down, still favoring that leg a little bit. And he's laying the rifle down on top of a chunk of rock up there, seeing if he gets a good vantage point on that old cave the Mustang likes. And seeing if it gives him enough of a wide vantage point to where if that thing starts to run, he can hit it. And he sort of sits back a little bit on his haunches and looks back up at William. So he sort of stands back up. He says, well, when this thing comes, I already got an inkling of where I'm going to go if it catches me. But before it does catch me, there is something I think I ought to say. But it's not something I really know how to. And I think he, at that point, he like reaches out like he's going to reach for William's hand.
What do you do, William? You're muted, my dear.
It would not let me unmute. Anyways, yeah. I look down, kind of see his hand. Look back up and I'll take it and just kind of look back at him and go, whatever other rules need to be remembered. You remember the golden one, all right?
And he chuckles a little bit. He says, that's a hell of a thing to say to somebody who killed somebody already tonight.
Yeah, well, I've read a little further, so at least I suspect so. It's important to, at the very least, it's important to trust the people on a night like this. I trust them, and I trust you. And whatever you've done is not for me to judge. Never will be. Not in my nature.
I can appreciate that, William.
Yeah, well.
And he leans back and says, well, I'll be getting my judgment probably sooner rather than later, one way or the other. But what I ought to say and what I got to say is that I'm glad you came up here. And you're the only thing I'm going to regret losing once this thing rides me down.
Well, all I'm going to say to that is, yeah, it's official. You got to come back now. Because I'm sure as hell not just letting you leave off on a wishy-washy note like that.
Oh, I think that's our moment then, when from across the plains we see in that cave a glowing red light. As Cassie and Kyle touch hands for a moment, as Jack and William touch hands on the hill, fire and smoke issues from that cave. Kyle looks across. Cassie, it's come. And yes.
Oh, she doesn't say a thing. She just stands up, picks up the shield, prepares herself.
Kyle stands up. And if we'd like, we can make the incantation together. Around the 2 pages, you'll see the incantation that brings the Mustang out as Kyle begins to intone. Some through the waters, some
through the
flood,
some
through the
through the
fire,
but all
through
the
the
blood. Some through great sorrow,
sorrow,
still
carry
carry
a song.
in the
In the
night
night
season,
season,
and
and
all
all
day
the
long,
day long.
as it issues forth and charges. Cassie, you lead forward.
Stay behind me, Kyle. You got to stay safe. We got to do this thing the way we said. 1 foot in front of the other, walking inexorably towards where the Mustang is rearing as it leaves its cave. She just keeps walking.
Stay behind that shield, Cassie. Stay behind it.
I may be crazy, but I ain't stupid, Kyle. I know the plan.
I remember Cassie standing on the edge of the old rail bridge with me, looking at my dark reflection in the water far below. Sun is high, and in a bright, clear blue sky. She reaches out to touch my hand. Cassie, choose one of those down there and flip.
It's a 4.
Tell me, how does that memory end? Us there on that bridge.
Reach out to touch Kyle's hand, looking down from the rickety timbers of the rail bridge, from where the rail line used to run before they got a depot in a larger city, in a city that became larger thanks to that depot and left us behind in the dustbin of history, staring down into that still, dark water. Well, Kyle, if we don't do it now, we're never going to do it. Only one way to find out how this thing ends. Just close your eyes and take 1 step. Hand in hand, Cassie and Kyle step off the half-rotten timbers. Eyes closed, hair streaming in the breeze as they fall down into the water below, not knowing anything about it. The temperature, what's underneath it, the depth even, just trusting that pure chance will take them safely down. And they splash into the water. There's bubbles, chaos on the surface. No telling what's happening beneath, if they landed on rocks, if it was deep enough to accept them. Long minute passes before 2 laughing faces burst forth from the water, smiling at surviving this too. and knowing that they'll be able to survive whatever else is thrown at them.
Jack, the Mustang is charged straight towards Cassie. Her shield is up, and she stood strong. What happens to her?
I think as it gets close to her, she lays out the shield, and on the other side of that metal, we didn't notice it before, but that side of that metal has been polished bright like a mirror. And when that thing sees its reflection in that chunk of metal that she's thrown in front of her, it rears up and it stomps down at the shield, tries to kick it aside, but she's braced it. The base is in the earth, and it kicks at it, stomps at it, but it can't break through it. And it breathes out the fire, and it just rolls across and over and out from that shield. And her hair is a little bit singed, but she stood strong. She took the heat, and she gives you the clearance that you needed to get close enough to do what you needed to do.
The Mustang's turned away. Cassie, you got to yell a warning up to Jack. Jack he has to bring it down. What do you scream?
Jack, it's running. It's running, Jack. You got one shot, boy.
I remember Jack pounding on my door in the dead of night, drunk and wailing. His face is bloody and swollen from the beating he's taken. Later, he cradles the rifle in his hands, talking about death. What was that memory, Jack?
I think before he got to your door that night, he had been out at the saloon drinking. His dad had been at the house drinking, so he didn't want to drink there. And he had saw somebody new in town, somebody ride through, somebody he chatted up, liked, but apparently that other fella didn't feel the same. And he ended up getting mobbed by old man Foster's boys after that. And he had staggered up, got his daddy's rifle and come back, but he couldn't bring himself to do anything at that point. Like he was just shaken to his core. And he was, battered, bloody, beaten, and he didn't want to, at that point the liquor had him hard, and he just didn't want to live anymore. He didn't want to keep going. And I think you had talked him away from that particular ledge that night. And I think after that, him and William had started talking a little bit, and that made him a little less maudlin. Still quiet, still didn't talk much, but he also didn't talk as much about dying either.
As the Mustang's running, Kyle moves from Cassie, trying to chase it as he yells back, "Jack, now, we got to slow it down." What do you do?
I think Jack lays the rifle across that rock, tracks it a little bit ahead because it's running fast, and he takes his shot. But he misses.
For us.
It's a 1.
William, something terrible has happened. What has happened to Jack?
He wasn't much of a drinker going into this, and really, in some ways. There was some respect for that, and there was certainly helpfulness to the fact that his hands were steadied, but those were the things. Those were really it. The hands steadied. The legs, less so. He was favoring one more than the other, most likely from his confrontation earlier. And as he'd set up the shot, whether he was unable to completely concentrate or whether it was just the fact that now he had one more thing on his mind, one person he could absolutely care about. He fired, and it was off just a bit. Not a lot, just a bit. But it was enough. And that Mustang just... It was like a signal fire. Just turned. Almost like a race car. Just, it seemed to like lose no speed, no agility, no nothing. If anything, it seemed to gain more. Almost as if the wind that bullet had flown on carried with it whatever anger or fear or guilt Jack had been feeling before. And that attracted the Mustang more than even the blood.
Mm. Mm. All right. William, you see Kyle rushing, turning back, trying to reach that hill as the Mustang, its hooves now bloody, rears above you. You have to quell it. The devil is in it, William. Rebuke it. Rebuke it. What do you do?
I take a deep breath. And I just hold the book to my chest and I start reciting from memory. And this is why I didn't drink. Because I didn't want to forget a single word, a single phrase, a single intent or meaning or anything behind this. And for a moment, I close my eyes. And it's not something that I'd thought about doing. I thought I'd be able to look it dead in the face. But now I have something to lose, too. Something that isn't just my God. Something that I could very well be losing right now. Should I be rolling or should I...
I think we're going to... As you hold yourself there, I remember William kneeling in the river beside me. His hands are strong, lifting me from the water, a benediction echoing in the air. William's eyes are clear and kind. You feel free. I feel free for the first time in years. There's a question on my lips. What did I ask you, William? What did I ask that you knew the answer to?
I think it was about Elizabeth. I think it was about your boy. I think that conversation by the fire was simply a reflection of something that had already happened. And I think in my younger years, I was strong and I was kind, and I said in a lighter voice than perhaps my pa did, they're where they need to be. And someday you will be too.
As I rush forward and the Mustang rears above you, hold him, William. Hold him. Roll.
It's a 1.
Cassie. What happens to William? What do we see?
William is almost mumbling the words to the prayer. All the words forming into one monosyllable as the Mustang rears above him, with terrifying whinny echoing across the hills. It looks as if its hooves are going to split his skull in twain. With a terrifying tenderness and gentleness, it comes down, and its flaming hoof touches the book that William clutches to his chest. Expecting a much more forceful blow, William stumbles, falls to the ground as the book turns to ash in his arms, leaving him with nothing to hold on to. But the Mustang is stilled, not in the way that we had planned, but its neck lies motionless enough that a well-placed knife may slide deep into its throat. Still.
Kyle rushes forward, leaping over the rocks. I can't avoid looking at my two friends, but I cannot stop what must be done. I raise the knife and plunge it towards the Mustang's neck. It has to die. This has to have been worth something, this loss. And so we shall see. The knife plunges into the Mustang's neck. Blood, smoke, fire erupts from the cut across its neck. It rears back, knocking Kyle to the side. But the spray of it turns the hillside, Kyle, the bodies of William and Jack, crimson, as that blood-red moon above shines down. And it collapses back down the hill, rolling across the rocks. But when it hits the bottom, it seems to just turn to smoke and dissipates across the plains. The Mustang is dead. Jack, what happens afterwards?
I think after the Mustang's body, or what's left of it, rolls down the hill and dissipates, I think at that point we'd see Cassie charging up the hill because she can't tell what happened. She can't tell at the end because of all the blazing fire and then the darkness shutting it down. She can't tell what happened up there with Kyle, and she runs up the hill. And I think she sees him there lying. He hadn't been able to get up. The fire from the Mustang's neck, because that wasn't just blood. It was like liquid fire. It was like napalm. It burned everything up there. Kyle didn't get as much of it as maybe William and Jack did, but Jack was pretty much gone already at that point. But William is lying there. He's burnt really bad. I mean, you see Kyle's the bright side of Kyle's body looks like it got dipped into a blast furnace. It's scorched, and Cassie's just trying to see what she can do, trying to do something.
Okay,
anything.
Cassie, you've gotten up there. What happens?
In the confusion and of the sudden darkness, it's not clear who's alive and who's died. Only that the Mustang is no more. And Cassie dives to the throats of all of the men, feeling for a pulse. She gets close to Jack and realizes there's almost nowhere left even to check. Leans over, feels William just in time to feel the last beats of his heart as his spirit leaves his body. Almost afraid to make her way over to Kyle. With the damage that's clear that's been done to him. And as she feels a slow but steady pulse in his throat, plants one kiss on his already scarring face, and sends a prayer up into heaven that she may not have done before her talks with William that night.
William, this moment on the hill, what happens for William?
I don't think anyone sees it. But when he fell on his knees, the book he had carried the entire night, ash in his hands. He made one last movement of his own accord, and it was reaching out in Jack's direction. I don't think there was a thing in his mind at that point he felt he could have done. But it was absolutely, in that moment, the right thing. And I think that he, as his spirit leaves, There is now silence. It's a different silence. One that this place hasn't felt in a long time. But I don't think it's one that's necessarily going to go away anytime soon.
Mm-mm. And as Cassie leans down to Kyle, he looks up at her. I was never a hero. But we knew heroes. And we ain't ever gonna forget them.
Amen.
And that, my friends, is the Mustang.
Whew.
I'm a little teary. Why don't we let's take 5-6 minutes, and then I'd love for us to come back and give a little thoughts on what we played. Does that sound good, everybody? All right.
Sounds good.
See y'all in a few. Woo-wee.
Seriously, you weren't kidding about that.
This is an emotional game. Holy crap. I really enjoyed this. You were all phenomenal. What I'd like to do is do a little kind of roses and thorns, but also I want us to think about it as also kind of a decompress, because this is a very emotional game. So, let's feel free to talk a little bit about how we felt through it, how we got through it, all that went on. And I think what's amazing is this game we played about an hour and a half. And it was pretty darn emotional. So I'd love for us to do a little roses and thorns, with kind of thorns on the idea of things that may have not gone exactly right, or we would have liked a little different, or looking at me facilitating, or looking at the game itself. Obviously, we don't thorn our fellow players. And with those thorns, I think that might also be the nice time to kind of decompress the emotions coming off of this. So, Chris, if you don't mind, would you go first on this?
Sure. The thorn wise, God damn it, I wish those flips would have gone better. For my own emotions, I'm glad I'd already sort of built Jack up for that kind of thing to happen. So at least that didn't come as like a shock. But honestly, Williams, that die roll, Peter, and what happened there, that hit harder than Jack's, way harder. I had hope when Cassie hit that 4 to start things off. I'm like, yeah, we're on a good side, and then, ooh. But that, I mean, I thought the game ran pretty well. I like the way you did it. I think with the sort of prayer / invocation / chant thing, I thought it could have been really good if like each person read one line. Since it's 4 lines, I thought that could have, because it was a little hard to kind of keep up. Because honestly, I mean, I grew up in church, but I'm still terrible with cadence reading. So it's hard for me to read along with somebody else. So I kept tripping over my tongue every time when I tried to jump to the right word that you guys had already gotten to, or I read just a little bit too fast and screwed up the timing. So
I absolutely hear that, and I probably should have done that, because no matter what with an Hangouts, it's always going to be off too. I absolutely hear that, and I think that's a very good piece of advice. Thank you, Chris. Keith, thorns going out of this.
It's hard to find them. I guess the only thing I can think of is a theoretical thorn, in that I would not have gotten everything from the design that we got out of it, because it's something that I'd looked at for years, and like supernatural Western is my jam, and I had never had the guts to write it myself because I didn't, I guess, grok it that well. So maybe that's the only thing, is that I feel like the writing in it could have told me how to run it a bit better. But as far as the actual running and everything that came out, yeah, I'll save that for roses.
I hear you there, and it is probably his most minimalist game. It really is. It's very bare bones. Thank you. Peter, thorns coming out of this.
Yeah. I mean, the coin flips for what they were. That's part of every game. Not the coin flips, but the randomization. So I knew just as well going in that, like, sure, there's a 50-50 chance, but like, there's also a chance we could just, well, and I mean, running wise, I think one of the things, I did get the sense that the way it's written, you're absolutely right. It gives a lot to the person running it. And like, so much of it feels like the other 3 players are more there to just supply you with like emotional backstory, which you're then going to enact yourself. So It's less of a thorn and more, I really appreciated the change because I felt like we were in control of our own destinies up to a point, and then it was nice to hand off that recitation to someone else because we couldn't fully go, well, this is what happens to us. And I think I'm not sure if I would have wanted to see it played out longer because I feel like the time we had was spent wisely. I think my only thorn is I wish I'd gotten to have more conversations with Cassie. Because we certainly talked about each other to other people, but we sort of just kind of were like ships in the night going up, passing along to one other person. So those are my only thorns.
I hear you. Thank you. And my thorns is I always feel a little awkward in that free play area. I want to keep it to some structure. But at the same time, I want to make sure we have enough of everyone interacting, and that's on me to figure out and make sure everyone has that opportunity. And I see where you're saying there. Cassie and William didn't have their real moment. And every time I run it, it's always a little bit of like, did I get enough of that in? It runs short in a lot of ways because it is so free. And you think free play would be very long. The way it goes, though, is you end up curtailing yourself. You hit real moments rather than expanding. And I know that's partially on me. I will agree that I think the structure of it leans way too heavy to the narrator. I like the changes I do. I'll talk about that maybe in Roses, but I think as written, it does make the other players a little bit of set dressing for what's going on. So a bit of a thorn for the game itself. At the same time, yeah, I'll come to Roses about why I really like it. Of other thorns, if I do think that I should have allowed more. Maybe I should have allowed more chances for people to interact. I never know exactly when to do that cut. So, a little thorn on me there. Now, let's get to Roses. I do want to unpack in thorns. Just because I said thorns are for this. Every time I play this, it really connects. People really care. That's not a thorn, but it is the darker side of the emotions. It always feels really personal and real. And I think that's neat in a game. It is a dark game. It is a game where you're almost certainly going to lose people and have a real high chance of losing altogether. And I think that's neat in a game. The Mustang is unlike anything else I ever run. And, that's not a thorn. That's just where I'm placing those emotions for us discussing it. The Mustang is something else. There's nothing else I run like it. Let's do some Roses. And I'm going to start on the other end. I'll let you, Peter, start us off with some Roses. What you got?
Yeah, so first off, I'm actually going to throw some roses your way, Tyler, for both GMing this and putting this together. This is not a game I think I necessarily would have found on my own, but it is absolutely a game that I enjoyed every second of. And in large part, I felt like whatever was going on behind the scenes or in your head about it, you had a steady hand with guiding the narrative, and I absolutely trusted you every second of the way. And it was just, I mean, half of my investment as my character was like just immediately in there the minute you started us off with where we were. So, roses to you for that.
Thank you,
Chris,
sir.
yeah, Chris, oof, oof, I could feel that tension. Roses to you for just like, I know it was written into the backstory very, very, very subtly, but I appreciated that there were no easy answers, and it was not a thing that Jack felt comfortable talking about, because I appreciated sort of exploring the emotional arc of that in an oblique manner. It was a nice comparison to, in a way, the stuff between Cassie and Kyle, because it was just like, it's there. And I, even in my head, I'm like, I think William sees it, but I never had to say, like, William sees it. It was just, you really helped thread it all together, and it was really nice. And finally, Keith, I mean, I'm sad about a lot of things, but boy, am I happy that Cassie survived, because she just had such a strong head on her shoulders, and you supplied that every second of your play. I mean, it was basically a performance, but it was so, so good. And like, I could see why Kyle was like, yeah, all right, you are something else. And just, she, like, to briefly tie in with my thorn, that was one of the reasons. You were one of the reasons why I wanted to interact with Cassie, because I was like, ooh, I would love to see us even just butt heads a little bit, because we seem so different. And the fact that either one of us could maybe only mention it briefly when the other wasn't around, I felt spoke volumes. So I'm so sad that that can't continue. But hey, roses to you for just selling it all.
Thank you, Peter. Oh, that was awesome. Keith.
I agree that I would have liked to have seen more William and Cassie. I was trying to kind of call back to it a bit at the end. It was like she says a prayer that maybe she would not have said before, to kind of give like the, yeah, William affected her more than you may have thought. Gosh, for roses, it's the opposite problem with thorns, because I don't know where to even start with everything. It was Tyler, I think you did a great job kind of guiding us subtly without really saying like, and now you're going over here and going over there, and doing a good job of maneuvering characters to get different interactions. Because I think if I tried to run this based on the writing, it would have been like, so you're all sitting around the fire and you're all talking, and pretty much only end up talking about the Mustang, and here comes the Mustang. And like, we got so into the backstories, and like, everybody did such a good job with the yes and that we just like, I pictured this whole town and this guy who dammed up the river, and I can't remember, I think Chris had mentioned damming the river, and I had thought of it like a second before, and I was like, oh, we're on the same wavelength with this guy. And then like, oh, the knife coming out, and like William trying to figure out how to interpret this, and like, is it okay to do this thing or not? And I don't know, and the book says one thing, and it's like, oh my goodness, these characters are so deep, and I know what's gonna happen to them. And that moment when William reached out for Jack's hand, I was like, oh, okay, there it is. It all hit home at that point. It was fantastic, very affecting, and thank you for facilitating it, Tyler, and thank you to Chris and Peter for playing. It was fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Chris, roses?
Oh gosh, roses for everybody. Tyler, I felt like when it came to running the game and facilitating it, I felt like every transition we did just felt organic, like something that would happen. Like if I was watching this as like a movie, if I was watching it play out, like that's the kind of things that would happen. Like Kyle and Cassie are going to wander off to chat. I mean, they're not gonna just hold hands and giggle, but it's going to be something like that. They're going to have to. It's just a character beat that has to happen. And I felt like, framing things up with William and Jack. That was the kind of framing that had to happen. So I understood kind of breaking everybody off with that, because those were two things that, at least as far as I could see in the module, you really needed to have happen. Things that had to happen. If we could have, it would have been great to have like more sort of cross-pollinating interactions going on, but those were the beats that had to happen, and I thought you sort of guided them where they needed to go. So I thought the cuts were perfect. I couldn't have figured out a way to do them any other way. Keith, Cassie's awesome. Her coin flip was the greatest weight that had been lifted off my shoulders in a long time of gaming. Like, just seeing that go, oh, good, I don't have to narrate something awful happening to Cassie. Thank God. And the way that the rest of it played out, I thought just, like I said before, like I was sorriest to see what happened to William, because that was where I felt like at least I had set myself up for what would happen to Jack, but I hadn't set myself up for what happened to William. So that struck home, and Peter, that's on you. Like, you made William into somebody that people could see and care about, and that was, the reason that hit so hard is because you were that good at it. And gosh, I mean, just the whole thing, I thought it played out well. I could see all these characters in my head talking, and I've never had a game end on story beats that felt right and yet hate them so much because of what actually happened. But I thought it ended, I think, a great way to end for this kind of game. Bad stuff was going to happen the whole time. But it's definitely a mark of everybody's characters. Like, when the bad stuff hit, it hit hard. And I thought that made it great. So I appreciate everybody putting it all in there. And I appreciate Peter playing along with Jack's sort of, walking around the big point nonsense that whole time. And I appreciate we're getting to see all those interactions between Cassie and Kyle. Tyler and Keith, you guys really brought that too. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for my roses, first off, I want to thank you all for kind of leaning into the changes I did off of Rules as Written. It puts a burden on people to do awful things or potentially wonderful things for their fellow players. But I think we built up such a nice emotional place that when folks described out the terrible loss, it rang so true. It was so beautiful. I appreciate you all so much for giving those descriptions and making them so real and touching and emotional. I want to give a rose. I want to say to John Harper, because even though I do think that Rules as Written needs some tweaking, he made a game in 2 pages that brought me to tears. And I don't know anybody much who can. Avery Alder has brought me to tears with games, but he did it in 2 pages. And that's pretty impressive. These characters y'all made. Chris, I thought how you laid out things was just brilliant. The leaning into the story. I loved the kind of foreshadowing of talking with William and saying, is killing a man always bad? And we led into where a lot of us could feel like, no, that motherfucker should die. To the heartbreaking sin that laid on Jack's soul. Keith, you were amazing to play with. That narrator Kyle or narrator Cassie dynamic is kind of ingrained in the game. You brought something so fresh and interesting, such a strong character. It was wonderful to see. And you made Cassie so deep. It was such a well made character you put out. Thank you so much. And Peter, I mean, you were rock star tonight. I mean, that William was something else. Every bit of what you laid out was just like filled with the pathos and the real decency of this character. It was beautiful. And I'll say seeing him die really was like that breaking point on me. I was like, oh, if I wanted anybody to make it through, oh, poor William. Y'all were amazing. And I hope that you had as much fun as I did, because I had a really good time playing this. So enormous roses to all of you, to John for making the game, and for Gauntlet for giving us a chance to play it. I thank y'all. It was awesome.
Thank you, guys. That was better than I could have had any expectation of.
Glad to hear. And I'm going to end the broadcast. Folks at home, a lot of things I run aren't nearly this depressing, but I hope they're all emotional. And if you like this one, well, watch more.